economic empowerment event entitled Landing a Career in a Pandemic. This is hosted by the Economic Empowerment Ministry at the United Christian Faith Ministries. First, we would like to start this event by honoring our pastor, Dr. Mark Ellis, for allowing us a platform to encourage and uplift, as well as educate people who may be unemployed, underemployed, or looking to transition their career in the middle of a pandemic. My name is Danielle Nelson. I'm the moderator for this evening, and I would like to open up this session with a prayer. God, we thank you for this opportunity that you've given us, God. We thank you for another opportunity to fellowship with you, Lord, to lift you up and to glorify your name on tonight, dear God. God, we thank you for the panelists who have come to share wisdom with us on tonight. I pray that you are glorified, Lord, even with the information that they share, Lord. God, I ask that you lift up someone who may be in a low place on tonight, Lord, due to their finances, Lord, due to their career being stuck, Lord. God, I know that you are able to do it. God, we thank you for this opportunity to share, Lord. And I just ask that your name be glorified on tonight, Lord. You get the glory out of this, Lord, and let testimonies of wealth and abundance and promotion and transition come out of this event on tonight, Lord. We trust you and we thank you, God. All the honor and all the glory and all the praise go to you, dear God. Thank you so much. In Jesus' name, amen. So first, I would like to start this off by introducing our panelists. The very first panelist that I will introduce to you on tonight is Dr. Ron Jackson. He has over 31 years of executive leadership experience in organizational leadership, human resources, and operations management. Throughout his career, Dr. Jackson has been instrumental in the development, implementation, and design of leadership development, executive coaching, performance management, salary administration, and career development programs. Dr. Jackson holds a PhD in organizational development with a specialization in leadership from Capella University in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and is a certified executive coach and human behavioral specialist. Dr. Jackson currently provides organizational development, human resources management, leadership development, and executive coaching services to diverse organizations within the Baton Rouge, Louisiana metropolitan area. Dr. Jackson also works as a graduate professor within the MBA program at the Southern University in Baton Rouge. Dr. Jackson, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight. How are you?
I'm well and glad to be here tonight.
Thank you so much. I will introduce our next panelist, Sister Vanessa Green. And hi, Sister Vanessa.
Hello.
Sister Vanessa has always had a passion for empowering, motivating others, and seeing them maximize their opportunities and reach their full potential. This has been reflected in her career of over 15 years of human resources and executive level management experience. Mrs. Green has served as the Human Resources Manager at Jackie's International, the City of Vicksburg, and Legends Gaming, and later as a supervisor with the Mississippi Department of Human Services. Mrs. Green's range of human resources and management experiences encompasses job description development, employee recruitment and screening, interviewing, hiring retention for all levels of employment, employee relations, individual disciplinary counseling, and personal development plans. Mrs. Green has conducted new hire orientation and employee development training. She has also assisted in the administration of performance review and merit increase programs to ensure efficacy and equity. Mrs. Green continues to use her extensive background to provide strength-based, solution-focused support as an MST therapist. She continues to share and utilize her leadership, coaching, and mentoring experience as an active member of United Christian Faith Ministries, where she serves as Executive Administrative Assistant to the youth pastor, as well as a member of the intercessory prayer ministry. Mrs. Green is also an active member of the Junior League of Baton Rouge. How are you this evening,
I
Sister
am
Vanessa?
doing amazing. Thank you so much for
Thank you
having
so
me.
much for joining us. I am excited for you to share with us on this evening.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. And next, but certainly not least, our last panelist, Sister Inez Hinton. Sister Inez presently works for the Boeing Company as a human resources business partner, where she is part of the employee relations culture and development team. She focuses on supporting leaders with team building, resources to enhance strengthening and engagement of the team. She also educates and provides support to leaders on the values of diversity and inclusion to create an environment of diversity and inclusiveness by enhancing awareness across the work groups to drive improved business results. Inez has experience recruiting, interviewing, hiring, conducting new hire orientations, writing job descriptions, and conducting job analysis, and performance management and managing business resource groups. Wow. Inez has also worked succession planning and management training as managed alternate dispute resolution at her facility. Sister Inez is a graduate of the University of New Orleans, where she obtained her Bachelor's of Science in Human Resources Management. She has also earned a master's certificate from Villanova University, an advanced intercultural management certificate from Notre Dame University. She is also a certified My Everything Disc facilitator, as well as a certified Inside Out coaching facilitator. Sister Inez has over 20 years of human resources recruiting and retention experience. Inez Hinton is a member of United Christian Faith Ministries, where she teaches spiritual discipline in our adult Christian formation classes. Sister Inez, how are you this evening?
I'm excited to be here with you
I am
tonight.
excited as well. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for sharing with us. I am super thankful for your expertise.
Absolutely.
And now that everyone has been introduced, we're all here this evening. Um, let's start off with a few questions. So, this is a good question, and I'd like to know the answer to this myself. Do potential employers look at your social media accounts, and why is that important? And anyone can answer this. We can start with Brother Ron, and then we can go around.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Glad to be a part of this panel discussion. So, the direct answer to that is yes, organizations do look at and view social media accounts. So, I want all of you out there that are looking for opportunities to be very careful about what you're posting. Not only that, I think something that really individuals need to pay close attention to is names of email, how you brand yourself with your email addresses, also the names on your devices as well, because they speak volumes about who you are as an individual. And certainly organizations are looking for people who can come in and add value to that organization. So your first impression or the first impression about you is what they see that's posted. So be very careful about how you brand yourself and be careful about your personal branding strategy.
Those are really good ideas. I honestly I didn't know all of that, even in the midst of my job searching. Did Sister Vanessa, did you have anything to add to that? Or
Yeah, actually, just to kind of piggyback off of what Dr. Jackson said, we have to be mindful that it's a snapshot of your life. So it represents your everyday life. And so you want your social media to reflect what's on your resume as closely as possible. They want to know that a potential employer wants to know that you are going to represent their company or their corporation very well wherever you go. There was a study done back in 2018, and it stated that over 55% of employers have reconsidered making an actual offer to a candidate after reviewing their social media accounts. So it's a very, very important part of your job search. You know, being careful about not complaining about a previous employer, any gripes or complaints, being mindful of the pictures that you post. You know, that's those things are very reflective of what your first impression, as Dr. Jackson said. So those things are very, very important. Making sure that your tone and grammar, you know, making sure that you know, that you're wording everything correctly. You're not leaving out words or misspelling words. Those things are very important, especially you know, based on the job that you may be seeking. If it, you know, calls for you to write, you know, and your grammar is not very well on your post, that's leaving an impression on them.
That's a very good point. Sister Inez, do you have anything to add to that?
Right. And to piggyback off of both Vanessa and Dr. Jackson, when potential organizations look at your social media, they want to see what your fit is like with the company. Right. So if you come in one way, they're expecting one thing, but you come in and they're seeing something else, then that's considered a bad hire. Now, they spend a lot of time grooming you to fit in. So they're going to look at that at first because cost is important when we're onboarding, right? So we want to make sure that you're utilizing social media to really put your best foot forward to advertise who you really are as it relates to organizations that you're hoping to become a part of.
Wow, that's all very good feedback. I'm learning myself this evening. That's another reason why I'm just super excited about it. Okay, so I recently did a job search myself, and I was successful in that. Praise the Lord. So I this was an important thing to me, and I want to see what your take is on this. Why is it so important to do research on the company? So I understand that there is limited information that may be open to the public regarding a certain company, but why is it important to have that surface research knowledge with the company that we're interviewing with?
I can start that. So one of the things is I'm focused on culture, right? So if you do the background of an organization, you see what they're doing for what their purposes are. You want to look at the vision of the organization. Do you fit into that? You want to really get a feel for what they're doing for their teammates. Do you get a feel that you can fit into that? If you're not doing the research, then you don't have really the questions to ask when you're sitting face to face as well.
Absolutely. Just to piggyback off of what she said, you want to know what kind of questions to ask in your interview. So having done that research on the company, their vision statement, their mission statement, their values, that enables you to be able to ask really targeted questions, and it shows your interest in potentially working for that company or for that corporation. And it'll allow you to also be able to answer questions with confidence, knowing that you've done some research on that company. Um, like Sister Inez said, you know, do your values line up with their values? Do their beliefs line up with your beliefs? Do you have the skills that are required for the particular job, even though there may not be a lot of information, like you said, but you get kind of a general idea in looking at the job description. So you want to make sure that you have the skills, and also so that you can tailor your resume based on that job description, not embellishing, but you know, to make sure that you're hitting those points, if those are actually skills that you have, that you're addressing those things in your resume.
That's definitely some good feedback. I've been shared that before. Dr. Jackson, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues wholeheartedly. I think it speaks to the potential applicant's curiosity. Organizations are looking for people who are curious and individuals who are prepared. It speaks to the preparation of the potential applicant. It also speaks to that individual's initiative and potential engagement level. So we're looking for people who are engaged. And so when a interviewee comes in prepared and has done their homework around the organization, it really helps the potential organization to see, again, as my colleagues have said, if you're a right fit. Because fit is important in today's 21st century knowledge economy.
Mm-hmm.
That is all some very good advice, to do research and to kind of build your ammunition, so to speak, so that you can go in that interview and really rock it, from a curiosity and also from a learned standpoint. So we're talking about questions and curiosity. What are some examples of some good questions that one could ask a potential employer? One that would exhibit their eagerness to learn, or their levels of engagement. What are some good questions that I would ask a potential employer? Dr. Ron, you laughing, so you look like you got a good.
Okay, I'll go ahead and lead the crew. So one of the questions I think, and so much is being said around the right fit and being the right candidate for that job. So we're not looking just for a job opportunity or a job. We're seeing if I'm going to be successful at that organization. So aligning to the organization's mission, aligning to the organization's values and mission is critical as well. So I want to see if my values are aligned to the organization's values, because if they're not congruent, then I probably won't be around a long time. So we definitely want to do that homework on the front end. But one of the questions, just to answer your question directly, is for me around performance management. I think a key question that anyone should ask is, how will my performance be measured? That's crucial for me. And how often will it be measured? Because feedback is really crucial in the 21st century organization. So I want to make sure and understand clearly before going in how my performance is going to be measured and how often will it be measured.
That's good. That's really good. Sister Inez, would you like to take a shot at that next?
I like that question. That's a good question. I'm right. I wrote that down, Dr. Jackson. Um, I never think about performance, but that's awesome. I always think when we're sitting with the potential employer, you like to know what their expectations are.
Yeah.
Like, they're looking at your resume, they're talking to you, but do you really see a challenge? You don't want to just go in and you're already ready to do the work. You want to have some stretching ability in there, right? So when you get in, you want to be able to grow. And so, what are the expectations?
That's good. Sister Vanessa, did you have anything that you would like to add to that?
Even when you're interviewing with a potential employer, you can ask questions of that potential supervisor or that potential employer. You can ask them a question such as, how have you enjoyed working here?
Mhm.
What's been your experience?
Mhm.
To even kind of let them know that you're really interested in the job. Tell me about the team or the department that I'd be working in. What do you think that department's greatest challenge has been, and where do you think I would fit in that?
Mhm.
And that shows your interest, that you've done research on that particular position, even in that company. So even making some of the questions personal to who you're, potentially
Mhm.
interviewing with, just to get a feel of their experience with the company. And again, like Dr. Jackson said, if it lines up with what your values are, and if it's a place that you truly want to be, that you're not just looking for a job, but that you're
Yeah.
looking for a career, that
Right.
that you're going to be there for the long haul. So having done that research and kind of basing those questions based on what you've researched and knowing what your experience is, I think makes it very helpful. And it in your affording yourself the opportunity to engage with your potential employer. And it's not just yes and no,
Yeah.
closed-ended questions, but you participate in making it an open-ended conversation.
I love how all of these answers kind of surrounded the concept and the idea of growth. I'm not just coming here for a job. I want a career. I want to help make a difference. I want to be developed, and I want to develop others along the way. And I can really appreciate that. It gives me a new perspective of my place in the marketplace. So we're talking about questions here and questions in the interview. How I'm getting ready to I'm looking for a job, and I've been, I've got some hits back, and I've been scheduled for an interview. What is a great way to prepare for this interview? What are some things that I need to ensure that I have before this interview gets started? Also include ways that I can make the most of a virtual interview, given the conditions that we're in today. What can I do to make the most of this virtual interview that would make these recruiters want to make me a member of their team? Sister Inez, I'd like for you to go first.
So when we're preparing for an interview, we've talked about
Yeah.
some of those already, doing the background of the organization, right? You want to make sure that, first of all, you're going to be ready. You want to have your questions. We've already talked about the questions that you're going to ask the potential employer. But when you're actually preparing you want to make sure that you're comfortable, right? So sometimes you have to be prepared. If you've not interviewed in a while, you're not sure how to greet, meet up with a friend, get a good firm handshake going, understand how to do that, have a pleasant smile. If you're not one that smiles all the time and you're not natural, get a pleasant smile, get used to that. You want to really learn too. What I find very important is be very confident in what your skills and abilities are going to reflect on the resume. Be prepared to talk through those. But you also want to study. You want to study to complete, and hopefully we'll get into that. You want to study to complete some questions, kind of be familiar with some of the basic questions that an organization will ask. Tell us a little bit about your background, that something that that have you prepared for this position. Be prepared to discuss that. Consider even some of the things that we may not see as certified or documented with the degree that could also be strong to help you really reinforce your talent.
That's good. Dr. Jackson, would you like to go next?
Yeah. So one of the things I think that I encourage my students to do is make sure that they're answering the questions. So oftentimes we get real nervous and we don't answer the questions that's being asked. So it's crucial that we are again attentive, paying attention, and answering the questions, and not just kind of going around in circles, but not answering the question. I get a lot of feedback from organizations that say students, specifically students in this case, do not answer questions. They give a lot of detail, but it's not on target. So make sure, as Ms. Inez said, that we are attentive, that we are all in, that we're focused, and that we are preparing. We definitely have to prepare. That means that we have to practice. We have to practice situations that we can have particular stories around the interview so that we can have some information to relay. But if we're not practicing, just going in there with just cold turkey, if you will, and not thought about it, it's not going to turn out well. Because today we've really shifted to more behavioral, situational interviewing. When their organization is putting us in contact with, they're doing case studies, and we have to be very clear that we know what we're talking about. And in order to do that, we have to significantly practice on the front end to be successful.
That's good. That's good. Sister Vanessa, you look like you just waiting.
I agree with Sister Inez and Dr. Jackson. Making sure it's okay if you have your questions with you. Take notes as they're talking, and so there may be things that they may address that you didn't, think of as far as questions are concerned. So take a little notepad with you and jot down some things so that you will have that information later on. So after your interview, you can go back and review that information. I think that's a really important thing to do. Make sure that you're always making good eye contact. Show that you're listening and that you're engaged with the person that you're interviewing with. So making that direct eye contact, smiling, like Sister Inez said, making sure you have that good firm handshake. Just the simple things that we don't, normally think about. Like she said, if you don't normally smile, you need to practice smiling and being engaged and making that good eye contact. But I say a big thing I know for me that's been helpful in the past is making some notes, just jotting some things down that I didn't think of, or even if it is a question that I do have, I can just kind of make some brief notes based on their response to that. And that's, when you go back, if it's you have another interview, it prepares you for, say, if you have another interview or you're going to a second interview, you kind of have a basis to build on. And so you're just building your skills from each experience.
That's good. So
I
I
just
like.
want to add one more thing in that same vein in terms of while you're in the interviewing process, it is okay to take notes if they're asking questions so that you can appropriately answer the question. So as they're asking the question, you can write it down. That is very appropriate. It's not out of order. Write the question down so you can make sure, again, that you're addressing the question as they've asked.
I'm so glad that you guys brought up smiling and firm handshakes and taking notes and being engaged during the interview, because that segues into my next question. So we're in a different environment here as it relates to interviews. So could you explain interview proper interview etiquette, be it virtual or in person? What are some good tips to ensure that I don't go in there and mess things up because I don't have proper decorum? I'm sorry, Dr. Jackson, would you like to go first?
Yeah. So one of the things, again, I think it's important is, again, to be mindful of the people, as my colleagues have said, did a great job, is gauging the room, again, being attentive. One of the things that I want to add, we're going to talk about in a minute, is to make sure that we are dressed appropriately. That is crucial. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness, folks. We got to do better with this dress. I know we're old school, but I'm serious. It can't be too tight. Come on, can I be real tonight? It just has to fit appropriately because they become very distracting. It's distracting, and when the interviewee leaves, I mean that's the talk of the conversation is the person who we just interviewed. So again, just being mindful about how we approach ourselves, how we come in, how we enter the room, how we communicate. All of those are key factors because they, again, as my colleagues have said, they are assessing right fit. Do you belong here? Will you fit into our culture? Will you be the best choice? So those factors are at the top of the list for me. It's appropriateness. It's whether or not I'm going to fit. Do I fit in this culture? And some cultures you may not fit in. I mean, there are cultures that I've interviewed for, and I said, I don't want to work here. This is not the place that I think is appropriate for me. So I don't just want a job. I want to make sure that I'm having some type of career orientation ahead of me.
Sister Inez, would you like to go next?
Absolutely. So when we're preparing or we're thinking about etiquette, don't wait until you get in the room with those interviewers to show your level of respect and kindness. It starts as soon as you get in the building, right? We ask for feedback from the receptionist, the guard when you go through the shack, the escort that walks you to your room, the person that comes in and services you, whether you want coffee, water, or soda. We get feedback from all of them. So being snappy, I'm sure you're nervous already, but anything less than respect, that's going to be documented. You don't want to just put your best foot forward for those sitting at the table who actually have the authority to hire, because honestly, you don't even know who that person is that's bringing you the coffee. You don't know if they're a manager or not. So
Wow.
make sure we're exuding kindness and respect.
Sister Inez, that is some good feedback. Treat people with kindness.
Mhm.
So, Vanessa, do you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
Just being on time, if not be early. Be it virtual or be it that you're going to a physical location, being early, you can tell a lot about an organization just showing up a little bit early, the flow and their communication with one another, how, like Sister Inez said, how you're greeted. Does that align with your values and your standards?
Mhm.
So just, showing up a little early. You don't want to just, rush into the interview. You're already frazzled, and, making sure, if you don't know where the place is, if you're going to the physical location, make sure you're getting your directions so you know exactly where you need to go, who you need to ask for, where you need to park, because those things can be a distraction to you when your mind is already focused on, you're not quite sure how this interview is going to go. So if you allow yourself the time, preparing the night before, making sure that you have your clothes prepared, that you have everything laid out, all those things greatly impact how you present yourself when you get to that interview. And even if it is virtual, you should still have the same mindset, the same discipline to prepare yourself early enough to be early, to be in place. Be mindful of, even what you have in your room, be it if it's a virtual interview, and those types of things, because like Sister Inez said, those things are documented, and people will remember those things as they're going through those applications or going through those resumes. And you don't want to be the person, oh, she was late, or she was the one that had this on. You want them to hear what it is that you're saying. You want the words that are coming out of your mouth to be the most important thing, and then not be distracted by you being late or what you may be wearing.
Mhm.
That's
And I have a
all good feedback. I'm sorry, did you have something?
Yeah, I have a relevant story. So, just to add to what my colleague just said, one of my colleagues was interviewing for a particular role at her organization, and the guy that was in the parking garage who was driving up for the interview, they were coming in the parking garage at the same time, and basically he was very rude, very brash, all kinds of ugly things in that regard regarding him, regarding her. And basically, when he got to the point to interview, he was interviewing with the lady that he had just really railed in the parking garage. And it was a situation because he was not paying attention and just was real brash, real rude, very ugly, called her all kinds of names. And obviously, he didn't get the job because he had demonstrated his character and had demonstrated that he was not the one who could be a right fit for that organization. So it happened.
Mhm.
So it starts from the parking garage, until you get out that door back to your vehicle. Make sure that we're careful with how we're treating and being kind to others.
Amen.
Dr. Jackson, thank you so much for sharing that story. While we're on the topic of etiquette, I'd like to ask a couple questions from our viewing audience this evening. Thank you so much for viewing with us. So the first question that I have, do you still need to wear basic blues and black to the interview as it relates to your fashion or your attire?
I'm old school. Yes, yes. I mean, I'm just old school. To me, I think it sets the tone. It speaks about who you are. And again, I am the message. So it's my branding is who I am. It's my value proposition. It's about what I bring to the table. So I am for that time. Yes, I emphatically say yes.
Okay. So what about if you want to add a pop of color? Is that okay?
Right. So for females, of course, we love the color. So the blues and the blacks, but you can put a nice soft pop of color underneath that. Another suggestion I have for females is you're not really sure what the building is. You may think you're going into a very nice 21st century room to interview, and it could actually be a room that's connected to an old building. So you don't want to wear heels that are too high, that's going to just cause you too much thinking to manage balance, if I could say it that way. So a very nice, comfortable heel in your blues and your blacks. Sure, pop a little color, but keep it modest. I'm old school.
Mhm.
I'll share a personal story. When I interviewed for a position in the oil field, everybody knows that I'm fabulous. I like to wear my makeup and my nice clothes, but I'm still very conservative. The lady she was with Career Services at Southern University, Mrs. Tamara Montgomery. I'm sure you guys know her. She said, "Pull your hair back. Do not wear the long bundles. Pull your hair back. Do go very very light on the makeup, and if you can." wear pants, because they're looking for a woman who's out there able to go and do a man's job. And I got the man's job because of the direction that she gave me regarding something as simple as hair and makeup. So it's definitely something that I hope that our viewers can take away on this evening. While we're still on the topic of etiquette, I understand that this is kind of like an icky topic for most interviewees. How do we approach salary negotiations? Is that to be done at the interview? Or should we wait until an offer is extended? How do we approach those types of conversations?
Hmm. I'll start with that. So you can't negotiate what's not been put on the table already. But you may get the question, what are your salary desires? What is your range? What are you expecting salary wise? And then from there, if an offer letter comes, you're able to negotiate. But if you're doing the research, most times you'll have an idea of what that salary range is for that organization. And so you can give that range when you're asked, but you have to wait until it's on paper to get into a real negotiation. Now, that being said, I'll let Dr. Jackson take the next part of that.
So typically, I kind of tell my students, I've been CHRO as well, to shy away from the salary question and answer within the interviewing process. I don't think that that's appropriate for the interview, at least, because again, your value proposition is to present who you are, the alignment component, and to make sure that you are right fit. I think based on the credentials that a person brings to the table, the salary will speak for itself. And you can, at that point, as Ms. Hilton said, you can negotiate upward if need to be. So I would kind of stay focused and stay, tuned to what's going on with me in terms of landing the job before I really start talking about salary in the interviewing process.
Sister Vanessa, did you have anything that you would like to ask about?
I agree with Dr. Jackson and Sister Hen. It's so important that, and I think it speaks to what we talked about earlier, doing your research ahead of time. You can do research on the industry standards as far as what salaries are for a particular position. But I think the most important thing at that moment is being fully engaged in that interview and answering those questions to the best of your ability, that what you're actually saying to that potential employer is lining up with what you have on your application, and that you're making that the most important part of your presentation in the interview. Those things will follow. But if you do that research ahead of time and it's not, where you would like it to be or where you think it should be, then maybe it's not the job that you should apply for. And then you also have to look at opportunities for growth. Is there a potential for there to be, merit increases every year or every quarter or what have you? Yeah. So, even that, you need to, I think it's best to wait. I don't think it's just something that you just, come right out and say. In due time, that will become a part of the conversation. But it's probably best to let the employer bring that up. They may ask you if you're aware of the salary range or, and that type of thing, and let them guide that part of the interview.
And I have another story to add to a similar situation. So I worked for this insurance company, and I was the HR manager for this insurance company, and we hired this female out of New Orleans, worked for a large organization, and she's coming to work for our organization. And so we approached her. So we made her an offer and she declined it. She said, well, this is my job. This is my actual salary requirement. When you can meet this, give me a call. So, she had the credentials. She was who we needed. She was already a leader within her organization, was going to add a lot of value. So she was very confident in her skills. She was very confident in her ability. Guess what? We called her back and she got the offer that she asked for because we needed her. So I think if you've done your due diligence, and organizations do have ranges anyway, so they're not kind of pulling these salaries out of the sky. They're looking at market value and what is typically being paid in the market. So it's not something just kind of pulling out of the sky. We're very intentional around what our salary structure looks like and our salary plans look like. So trust me, I mean, just from an internal equity perspective, you have to look at that just from a diversity, equity, inclusion perspective as well. So I think organizations today have to be more intentional around what they pay African Americans, what they're paying women, to make sure that they are in equity. And if not, you get sued. I've gotten sued before as an organization. This female said, all the other men in the department make more than me. So she took us to court and sued us. We won, but she did. It was her right to sue us because she felt that her pay was not equitable with the guys.
Mm.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. You have some excellent stories, and I'd like to listen to a few more. However, we got to get back on track with the questions. Now, we talked about our resume and knowing our resume and being confident in the things that are on the resume, ensuring that our resume information is factual. Um, I am familiar with the STAR method as it relates to an interview. What does it mean to our viewers, and how exactly do we use it? How do we use it in an interview? And how can I tailor the information on my resume to fit into the STAR method? Sister Inez, would you like to go first?
I can explain the STAR method. Sure. So STAR simply means situation, task, actions, or results. Right. So if you're sitting in an interview and you're asked a question from a structured perspective or a behavior perspective, you'll hear something like, tell me about a time, explain to me when, how did you handle? And at that point, what you'll do is you'll set the scenario up by explaining the situation, right? What was the situation? What was it that you had to do? Then that becomes the task. What do you have to do and what is the expected outcome? You talk about all of the things that you specifically had to do in your team, or if you're an individual contributor, those things that you had to do, and then talk about the results of that. Right? Talk about the results of that. What did that do to your organization? Did you save money? Did you save time? Did safety scores go down or did they go up? What improvements happened as a result of that task that you were responsible for?
That's a really, really straightforward response as it relates to the STAR method. Do our other panelists have any tips as to how to navigate approaching the STAR method when preparing for an interview?
I think she did an excellent job unpacking it for us. It was definitely on point. Basically, just to add just one little snippet there, it's really having stories around particular work outcomes and you were successful with. I mean, that's kind of the skinny of what STAR is. But she did a fantastic job in unpacking it. I don't have anything else to add because it was right on point. That's STAR.
Okay, Sister Inez, you actually you mentioned a structured interview, and this is to the panel. How do structured interviews work, and how commonly are these practiced? Um, Sister Vanessa, you can answer that question first.
It's a common thing. I mean, because there has to be a structure when you're interviewing several candidates for a particular position. The flow of it may be a little bit different based on, how you're received in the room and the energy in the room, but the structure is going to be very, very important because they're going to be asking probably the same questions to every candidate for that particular position. So again, doing your research, like Dr. Jackson said, having some stories. If it's a job that's very task oriented or goal oriented, or you have to reach quotas or that type of thing, customer service jobs, having those types of stories in the back of your mind will
Mm-hmm.
help in that structure because they will ask those types of questions of you based on that position. So the structure is going to be very, very important because of, depending on how many candidates they may have for that particular position. So it allows them to be neutral in a sense,
Yeah.
and get the information that they need so that they can ensure that they have the best fit for the job, have the best fit for that company, that you will fit the culture, that you do line up with their values, with their mission. So having that structure enables them to do that. So that's why everything else doesn't need to be a distraction. And you answer those questions directly and straightforwardly based on your resume and based on your experience.
Mhm.
Dr. Jackson, do you have anything to add?
I agree with her 100%. I mean, that's definitely on point. And just from a legal perspective, when you think about interviewing, because interviewing can be a very litigious process, and applicants are suing organizations these days for wrongful, not hiring them based on Title VII, discrimination issues or ADA issues or whatever those issues may be. So just from a structure perspective, as Vanessa said, it definitely helps from a compliance perspective that we were asked the same questions of everyone. All of the males got asked the same question that the females did and vice versa to ensure that we were compliant and that we were not giving any ups to any particular group around interviewing to ensure consistency. And that's what the structured interview process is for.
Sister Inez, do you have anything to add to the structured interview process?
Just that one of the things about structure is that we're asking the same questions in the same order.
Yeah.
What happens is if you're doing a group interview, you and two other people, three people, if you're at a crossroad, right, on who's the most qualified, you can literally look at what's the most important need for the job. And let's just pull all the other questions away and let's really just zone in on the answers to these questions because everybody hopefully took good notes. This is your backup just in case we have to go to court. And you really dissect that and look through that. And from there, you can determine the highest qualified candidate at that point, just looking at the answers.
That's all very good feedback. I had a question from the audience. So again, given the conditions that we're in regarding the job market and the pandemic, a lot of people are using profiles such as LinkedIn to be marketed and to be searched by recruiters to search for job positions at this time. So, what can I do to make my LinkedIn profile? We understand that this is the buttoned up of all buttoned up profiles for social media. So I'm already on my best behavior. What can I do to set up this profile to ensure that recruiters see me, they see my skills, they see my experience, they see my education? What can I do to ensure? What else can I do to make my LinkedIn profile, for example, marketable and searchable and desirable for recruiters?
One of the things that I think is important is looking at individuals who are subject matter experts. For example, if you're looking for a generalist, look what their profile looks like and copy it. I'm just being totally honest with you. Don't reinvent the wheel. There's a career that you're looking for, and you know folks that are doing that job already. Go out there and look on that LinkedIn profile and see the things that they have. Of course, you don't want to embellish things, but nevertheless, you want to present your best self. I mean, you want your best self because, again, organizations, people out there on the LinkedIn profile, assessing and looking at what we bring to the table. Again, it's your branding strategy, it's your value proposition, and you want to be your best self when you are presenting who you are to audiences.
Sister Vanessa, would you like to add to that?
I agree 100%. You know, take the time to look at other profiles, look up examples of resumes for a particular position. You can do research and look at other resumes and how they word those things, looking at the subject, their experience in particular areas. Um, and that if your particular strength is in hiring and interviewing, then you definitely want to speak to those things and detail those things in your resume. So doing your research on what those things look like in other resumes, on other profiles, and you can build from that.
Mhm.
And like Dr. Jackson said, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Just make it applicable to you and your
Right.
experience, but it gives you an idea of what they're looking for that will help you stand out. And then when you make it into the room, then you can just speak even more to your experience in that area. So definitely, when you're looking for a job, the biggest thing is doing the research, taking the time to do the research in every area, your resume, etiquette for the interview, even, questions that you're asking. It's really taking the time to do the research so that you can be prepared. Because the one thing that Dr. Jackson has said repeatedly is, you're branding yourself. So you are a brand. And so you have to look at yourself in that manner. You're more than just a person looking to fill this position, but you are a brand wherever you go in life, especially when you're applying for a position. So you want to put yourself in the best light as possible that makes you the most attractive to those potential employers.
That's
Mhm.
good. I'm so glad that we're talking about branding and making ourselves marketable and desirable to these recruiters. So the best and most forefront way that we brand and market is with our resume. So what are some good like straight hitters for a good resume? Like what are some tips for some good must haves for a desirable resume? I'm sorry, Dr. Jackson, you like you ready to chime in.
Well, formatting is important. I think again, making it appealable so that folks can it'll stand out for all intents and purposes. And then most important, these colleagues have said it over and over again, checking for grammatical errors. You wouldn't believe the folks who send resumes in or now job boards and they've not proofread the content. So make sure that the content is proofread because you will be judged so sorely, in an indifferent way when they're errors. So make sure that you're vetting that through someone else or get someone to do it for you. Pay someone to do it for you. Again, that is important to me. Your presentation of that resume is really going to stand out and how it looks. And again, making sure that the content is authentic.
I have a question. Is there such thing because I look at my resume is very uh conventional, it's conservative. However, when I look at resumes, when I look at other resume templates, I see that the resume has evolved within the last 10 years. So is there such thing as an outdated format for a resume that somebody could look at and say, she's not caught up with the times? Is that a such thing when it comes to resumes? Sister
Hmm.
Agnes, you look like you might know.
I'm old school, simple, simple, simple. It's like keep it simple. I mean, to me, I think we have really veered off course, and I know we've changed. We live in a knowledge economy, but as simple as you can make it, equitable to what the organization is looking for, I think it will get noticed.
I agree with you, Dr. Jackson. We use, and I look at what when I'm looking at resumes, if it's paper, I like to see what's considered a combination. If you have technical skills, I like to see your technical skills. And I also like to see, the other skills that you have, leadership skills that you have as well. But what's really important and what I see executives look at and make decisions on interviews really quick is that there's these key qualifications or key accomplishments. When they look at those accomplishments, they don't usually look at the company. They look at those accomplishments. They'll highlight two or three things of interest, and then they'll say, I'd like to interview that person. So if there are key accomplishments, you can add that. And you know what? That's an area that as you learn in your business, as you grow in your business, you could always add a little something extra to the key accomplishments. If you don't have time to fully update your resume, then you could just put a blurb right there in key accomplishments, and we can see what you've done and what you're working through at any given time.
That's good. Sister Vanessa, did you have anything to add to that before we close?
I agree with Sister Inez. Just making sure that if you don't have time to update your resume, hitting those key points, what you accomplished in that last position, what the things that you were successful in doing for the organization, be it, if there's a quota that you met that quota, and what, making those things known, because they're only going to look at those key things. They may discuss some of the other things, but they're going to look at some very important things: your technical skills, you being able to use Excel and PowerPoint and Word and things like that, other skills that you may have. So they're going to look for those key things to see if it's a fit. So if you have the time to, revamp your resume, or that you're going to ask someone else to do it, make sure that it's tailored specifically to that job. And if there are results that you have from previous experience in that job, it's definitely important to highlight those things.
That's good. That's good feedback. So
One quick go back, and I don't want us to forget that because I like traditional as well. When we're completing our resumes, we want to make sure that we don't have three or four different fonts. It's
Yeah.
not an art show.
Yes.
You're selling your best self.
Yes.
Limit that, right? And then keep in mind too that a lot of organizations today, they want that online. So when you're creating your resume, you want it to be easily convertible when you're scanning it into the online database.
that's good. That's really good. You guys, we have approached the end of this panel, and I am not ready for it to end. I am learning so much, and I know if I'm learning, everybody else getting something from this too. So before we go, each of you, I want each of you to give your most important tip. What is a must in job searching? What is your biggest advice? I need 1 point from each of you. Sister Inez, I'd like for you to go first.
In an interview, I like to see that a person is confident in their talent, skills, and ability, and that they sell themselves because you are bringing you to the table and you're asking us to buy your talent in a sense. So I like to see a person very confident. It doesn't matter if you're not PhD. If you are talented, come and sell your talent.
That's good. That's good. Dr. Jackson.
So here's my takeaway: prepare, 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 practice, practice, practice. Know the job that you're interviewing for, and make sure that you have stories around that job function that you can convey success to the organization.
That's awesome. Sister Vanessa.
Be mindful of where you're applying. Look at quality versus quantity. I
Mhm.
know we're in a time where, we may apply for several different jobs, but keep up with those positions that you apply for, and make sure that there are positions that you truly are genuinely interested in, that you really it's a place that you desire to work, and you're not just filling out applications because you're, so desperately seeking a job. But look at the quality, look at the organization. Like Dr. Jackson said, just prepare, do your research, take the time to really prepare for that interview, because it's, they're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them. And so it's so important to take the time to just look at everything, and look at the quality of the organization. If you can find any research as far as turnover or things of that nature, it's so important for you to have all of that information so that you can make a very well-informed decision should they make you an offer. You want to be prepared and feel comfortable walking into that position, that what was presented to you is what it actually is when you start that job. Just like the employer wants to know that what they saw in the interview is what they're getting as they onboard you. Because like Sister Inez said earlier on, in the panel, there are expenses that companies have to factor in when onboarding someone.
That's all very, very valuable feedback. And I know that it just gave me that extra kick that I need. I'm not even in the job search, but I know that it inspired me and it encouraged me and it gave me some insight regarding the job market and regarding being recruited and being marketed and desired. I know that it helps somebody out there, and I pray that those of you who are out there viewing on tonight, I pray that there's a turnaround in your career, because I mean. There's nothing that can make us feel valuable like gainful employment. And I'm so thankful to our panelists that have shared with us on tonight. Unfortunately, we have reached the end of our program. And man, if we could go another hour, because I know that you guys are overflowing with that knowledge. Y'all have experience, and that's why I'm thankful to be here. Um, I would like to share with our viewers about our Teach Your Child to Fish program that we have upcoming in the end. I believe Sister Karen will share that with us. But in the meantime, text fish to register your child. Text the word fish, FISH, to our church teams at 225-250-1970. The first 10 children to register are absolutely free. And we will be sharing with our children the values of financial stewardship, being good stewards of money, sowing and tithing and investing and saving and budgeting. I know adults that need this information. So let's get the children started early. If you would like to donate to our Teach Your Child to Fish efforts, you can also text the word teach, TEACH, to our church team number as well, 225-250-1970. You guys, this was an excellent evening, and I'm so thankful that you guys shared this hour with me to reach out and give that advice and that encouragement to those who are looking to find employment, to get a boost in their employment, to make a whole career transition. I know that I'm blessed, and I know that those who have viewed with us tonight are certainly blessed as well. And God, my prayer is that God continues to bless the labor of your hands, and He continues to pour knowledge into you so that you can continue to impart this wisdom to people across the world. Claim it. Yes, it is done in the name of
Yeah, we
Amen.
receive it.
that,
Amen.
that is all I have. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This concludes our event. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks.